In Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu has set up a tripartite economic advisory committee on what he described as part of his efforts to stabilizing the economy. The committee, which comprised representatives from the federal and state governments as well as organized private sector, assembled at the State House in Abuja on Sunday. That's the 25th of February 2024. Some members of the private sector include Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, and also the chairman of BUA Group, Abdulsamad Rabiu, ex-governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State, amongst others. Now, joining me, of course, to shed more light on this and make sense of this development is Bola Olojade, economist, and also Oludare Akinlaja, management consultant and international development advisor. Gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us here.
All right, let me start off with you, Oludare. I mean, what do you make of the relevance of this particular meeting, looking at the current realities in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much, Dapo. I think it's important. At the moment where we are in Nigeria, I think all hands just have to be on deck. This is not a time to play some sort of partisan politics. We are all feeling the transitions that come with the reforms, that come with the decisions that have been made. So I think there's no better time to do this than we're having now. Even if some people will argue that maybe the committee should have had maybe some other sort of inclusions in it, covering maybe the informal sector, covering the young demography and things like that. But with the composition of the economic team, I think it is clear that the president has now seen that, you see, this situation we're in does not only require everybody being on deck. This is not the time to determine what party you are in or what party you are not in. It's a time for us to put all hands on deck and face and deal squarely with what has been done. And I think there's no proper time to do this than now.
All right, let me take Bala's opinion on this. But before then, just to give an idea of those that were in attendance, particularly from the private sector, I'd like that, of course, graphics to come up. We know that Aliko Dangote was part of those in that demography. We also had the likes of Femi Otedola and also Samad, that's Rabiu. There you have a breakdown on your screen. Amina Meina, that's the Vice President, NESG, and also Boye Olusonya, Flour Mills, and also Shegun Ajayi, Kada, Tony Elumelu, Innocent Chukwuemeka, Bismarck Rwani, and I mean, the list is pretty, someone said it's the economic powerhouse of Nigeria, right? Almost the who's who when it comes to the economy, you know, in Nigeria, particularly, you know, at the top cadre. Now, what's your take on the importance of this meeting, looking at the caliber of individuals present? Bola.
Well, it shows how serious the matter is as we speak. And it's also a recognition of the fact that no matter how big the problem is, if we put our heads together, we can provide a solution that will work for everybody. So in the mix of the people that you just show now, you have the industrialists, you have the manufacturers, who are actually getting their hands dirty in the industrial sector. You have the financial people, who are the people providing all this foreign, financial services support for those industrialists. You also have the people who are in there. You have academics. You have government people. So it's a very beautiful cocktail of private sector, public sector, looking at the same problem and being able to fashion out what will be a solution that works for everybody or works for the nation as a whole. So it's a very beautiful initiative. I've always been an advocate of whatever the problem is, find the right people, lock them up in a particular room, and they can come up with a solution that works.
But some are also arguing that it's also some sort of a reflection of a government bereft of ideas.
Oh, people who go in that line are probably not being realistic. The reality is that there are no better place. Okay, so people who are in government, how many of the people who are in government are industrialists of the caliber of Dangote or are investor in the caliber of Femi Otedola? Let them raise up there. So when you want to solve a problem like this, it is that cocktail. That cocktail is very important. It's a mix of everything and anything you require to solve the problem. The people who are carrying the weight from different sectors, the manufacturers, the financial services people, the government people, the regulators, everybody is there. Anybody who thinks, oh, it's because they're bereft, or that is fine. We are bereft, the government is bereft of ideas. Therefore, he has decided to go to where he can find the ideas to solve the problem. What is important for the people is getting the problem solved. It doesn't matter. We can also come back to the politicking side of it. But for now, let's solve the problem first.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the president said that the goal is to provide additional support in stabilizing the economy and also ensure that the best economic future for Nigerians is established. Now, looking at this committee setup, do you think that, I mean, this is not the first time, even the former administration had these kinds of meetings, right? Do you think that at the end of the day, anything tangible, that will trickle down, particularly to the family level, at the micro level, do you think anything significant would actually come out of it? I'm talking to you now, Dari.
Well, when it comes to policy design, strategy, and whatever it is, we will just always have to try, okay? You can't always anticipate and say, oh, nothing has come out of this before, so we're not going to do that. In America, there was a Presidential Advisory Council for Economic Issues inaugurated. When you go, so people just need that private sector perspective to push and to drive. A particular mention of somebody on that team, Chukwuma Soludo, the governor of Anambra State, who has at one time been a CBN governor. His ideas of what he wanted to do at that time and how he can create a blend with being in the public sector now. So we need all those ideas at this point in time. Like I told somebody, we are not going to solve all the problems. Governance is a continuum, okay? We probably might just be dealing with issues that were created in the last administration or the administration before that, and we are now here making certain adjustments. So we just have to keep tweaking, keep making adjustments. Some people will still feel certain heat for a period of time. Some other people will heave a sigh of relief. In that group, for instance, there is the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Nobody will tell me that those people are not feeling the dollar inconsistency, import and export rates, and all that. So looking at that, the groups of people there, I don't think anybody can point and say, oh, this was just picked because the government did not want real solutions. That list shows that this government wants to take steps at least, okay, to be able to ask what kind of policy, what kind of thing or strategy do we need to come about. And I need to say this. During the meeting, I just also watched some small clips. You could see the sort of camaraderie that happened. There was that discussion because no matter how much money you have in Nigeria today, everybody knows that we need to get out or find better ways to deal with our reforms, create adjustments so people can begin to see some form of progress in whatever they're doing right now.
I mean, this time around, I might just want to go into a bit of specifics because I personally also had conversations when this story broke out yesterday. And I mean, the feel was that some of those present, in the meeting might even be the source of the problem or the cause of some of the problems, economic problems Nigeria is facing right now. A particular, mention was Dangote, for instance. It seems to, his company, for instance, seems to monopolize certain sectors and control the price to some extent, right? We know that in the construction industry, for instance, the price of cement, is almost double, if not more than what it was sometime last year, right? And he is a major player in that sector. So the question is this. You have someone like that who has, even though Nigeria is a capitalist system that encourages competition, but we know that this particular name seems to have some sort of advantage right? And then you are calling that individual again to the roundtable. Some are of the opinion that instead there should have been even more sanctions. So I want to know your take on this, particularly with specific individuals, on that list. I'm talking to you right now, Bola. Do you think that some names or some individuals, instead of a roundtable, maybe it should have been the other side?
The other side is not going to produce the result that we want. What will produce the result is to talk. So I would rather want to put Mr. Dangote or Mr. Abdulsamad in a room and say, oh, the price of cement is so much. It is biting hard. What can we do? How can we, as a government, support you to ensure that that price will not be as high?
But I'm sorry to cut in. Why I'm asking this is because in America, for instance, if we cast our mind back, right, there was the Capital Oil owned by John D. Rockefeller. It became so big that the government felt, you know what, for the health of the economy and also for competition, they introduced a policy called the antitrust law that sort of broke it into fragments, right?
Yeah.
Such that even though, yes, it is a powerhouse, it wasn't that powerful. Some of the opinion that, maybe policies like that should be introduced to allow, competition thrive in a truly capitalist, system. I mean, I'd just like to know your take.
Maybe not in the midst of the kind of crisis that we are. So if you pull down a Dangote empire or you pull down an Abdulsamad empire right now, how do you think that will solve the problem? So the sugar, the flour, everything goes down right now. That is actually complicating the problem, not solving them. So the Chairman antitrust law that you refer to, those are not the kind of intervention for a kind of season that we are. You have to find what is appropriate for the season. When you solve the problem, when you intervene and solve the problem, you can come back and say, from a policy perspective, what do we need to do to have sustainability in this thing, in that thing, in the other thing? But try to say, oh, I'm just going to slap sanction here, sanction there, it will end up being like sanction against some of the countries in West Africa in the wake of the coup d'etat that we started seeing around. And how over time we have realized that maybe that is actually not the approach, and we have backpedaled to stop from starting right. So knowing the right time to judge and when to war is very important in the solving of this problem. That is what we must bring to the table. So antitrust or no antitrust, we can talk about it later. What we need now is, what we have now is an emergency situation. We need certain intervention, and let's be able to, douse the pressure that is currently in that space. And whatever can help, we should be able to apply it.
I'd like to know your take, Dari.
Well, I agree totally. I agree absolutely with Bola. And in policy design, you must understand the power of timing. You must always understand the power of in strategy. You must always understand timing. Okay, so if you are about to slam sanctions, what are the people that Dangote is currently paying their salaries? Okay, are you now going to add them to the unemployment cadre? And most of all that, so you need to ask yourself, when is the proper time to do a thing? And as we speak now, the Dangote and Rabiu are basically people who have major investments and stakes in the economy. Okay, so what you want, what I think the president is trying to get them to do, or the government is trying to get them to do, is to commit more, because as shareholders in the Nigerian economy, I'm sure they don't want chaos to happen. I'm sure they don't want any form of unsettling to happen in the economy. So giving them that platform to say, now work. Okay. In fact, I even think that Aliko and Rabiu now have been put in the forefront, literally. And Nigerians can now say, now let's see what you can do to solve this problem. I even think it's a perfect thing to have put them in the forefront. Okay. So if you say they are part of the problem, okay. So the government has said, okay, so let's now bring them in to solve that problem that you say they are part of. Let's see how far they can do. And a lot of Nigerians are watching now, because the pressure seems to be going across, but at the same time. So it's not that there's some section of people are saying, oh, we're having, no, there's a problem across board. Okay, so I think this is the perfect time for us to put them forward and say, how can you see or how can you find ways to solve the challenge we are currently dealing with?
I mean, this particular meeting, quite some would say, yes, it involves the big, names, particularly when it comes to the economic situation or issues in Nigeria. But again, you said something, Dari, that people at, the lower cadre seem to have been left out. What am I talking about? We know that right now, at the family level, at the micro level, people are being hit the worst. Let's look at food items, for instance. We know that as at the beginning of this month, the price of a bag of rice rose to about 72,000 naira from 35,000 naira that it used to be this time last year. As at today, I'm getting fillers that imported rice, let me be specific right now, goes for as high as 92,000 naira. We know of what the price of cement is, a bag at the moment in Nigeria. So the question is this. Yes, we know that this kind of meetings, at top cadre is important. But what about meetings at the lower cadre that, interface directly with the people? Do you think that the government, left out that set of people? Or do you think that maybe the government really needs to do something when it comes to intervention? It could be a meeting, it could be maybe a policy initiative, particularly that affects that cadre, from retailership to wholesale to distribution and all of that, particularly that sector that interfaces directly with the people. I want your take on this, Bola.
Well, you see, the problem right now is not that of analyzing the hunger situation or the economic crisis that we are already in.
But you would also want to say it's important because that's what is really what is hitting the people most.
Yes, that's what is hitting the people. I'm saying we already know the problem.
Okay.
So we're not starting from the problem. What we're looking for is a solution. We know there is hunger. We know there is inflation. Inflation numbers have been announced all the time. Apart from that, we've seen protests, we've seen comments, we've seen articles, we've seen write-ups in the papers. So we're not, it cannot be said that the people on that panel are immune or have not been seeing what is going on all around them. So the analysis is done. The problem is known. What we need to come up with now is the solution to the hunger, to the price problem, to the volatility in the FX market. That is what that committee will help to deal with. As far as the problem is concerned, it is established.
All right, reports are just reaching me now. Has it that one of the aides, the aide to the president on information and strategy, that's Bayo Ononuga, actually put it out on social media, that's on the platform X, saying that President Tinubu cuts costs of governance by implementing the Oronsoye report. It goes on to say that 12 years after the Steve Oronsoye panel submitted its report on restructuring and rationalizing federal government parastatals and agencies, and the white paper issued 2 years after, President Tinubu and the Federal Executive Council today decided to implement the report. It goes on to say many agencies will be scrapped and many others will be merged to pave way to a leaner government. Dari, let me start with you. Do you think that this would make any significant impact?
Beautiful. I was still speaking with somebody 1 week ago about the cost of governance and how the Oronsoye reports, people have been shouting about that report for so long. But this is the challenge with what we're dealing with in Nigeria. Dakbo, watch Nigerian Labour Congress fight it. So you see, we are really faced with a wicked problem. All right. On one hand, we want solutions. On the other hand, so it's sometimes as someone who interfaces on governance issues, I always use this analogy. Sometimes you have maybe an ant, right, on a tiled surface, and you have what you have to deal with that is maybe a hammer. You know, you will kill that ant, but sometimes you crack the tile. So sometimes the challenge we have in our system is really a wicked problem. While you are solving one, you might be trying to create another problem. But I'm excited with the Onosai report. Anybody who sees most of the agencies at the federal government level and even state level know that one person doing two different things, or two different people doing the same things, really looks like you're trying to create jobs for other people by opening multiple agencies. So I think streamlining this thing would be perfect in cutting governance costs. Let me also put this out here, Dakpo. People were asking why the president had to have so much ministers. Now my question to them is, which states will refuse to have a minister if you decide to cut down the number of ministers? Which state will say to you, oh, don't worry, we don't need ministers. You can pick ministers from other parts of Nigeria. You see, that's a design problem. So really, we are faced with a wicked problem in Nigeria. And I always tell people, until we begin to look at the structure, the design, and the way Nigeria is put together, most of these reforms will always look like a witch hunt, will always look like ethnic issues, will look like tribal issues, because how we are designed always puts us under pressure when we start to reform.
Bola, what's your take?
Well, I have a conspiracy theory around the timing of the implementation of Oronsaye report. One of the things that governments do, and this is across the world, it's not a Nigerian thing, is to create certain distractions at strategic time to refocus what people are talking about, what they are discussing, what is preoccupying them. So it looks to me as if that is what the timing of implementation of Oronsaye report looks like. It's something that a lot of people are looking forward to. It will help to occupy us a little bit. We'll discuss it and all the rest. But what is involved is a bit deeper than just the way it looks right now. Oronsaye report, as at the time the report itself was released, vis-a-vis now, the report is outdated. It has become an archival piece as it is. So to even begin to implement might require that you update the report, as it were. But as far as serving as something to engage the people with for now, I think it will work.
You said engage the people with for now. It sounds more like lip service. But
it's all part of what government.
I also could say, for instance, that it also came to my head 3 weeks ago that probably this government is taking advantage of the pressure around Nigeria to begin to do things that they wouldn't have naturally been able to do if everybody seemed to be in status quo. So anything thrown at them now looks like a good thing.
Anyway, I mean, this particular issue has been, on the front burner. But another angle to this is this. That's the write-up or the post says many agencies will be scrapped and many others will be merged to pave way to a leaner government. Agencies being scrapped means people might be fired. People will lose their jobs, right? And then we are talking about an economy that is struggling. The hunger ratio, has spiked. The price of living standard is, way up. And then someone goes home without a job. Don't you think that further compounds the issues? Dari?
Well, that's why I say it's a wicked problem. But because of the attention the government is getting, the government will prefer to have to deal with that context of scrapping agencies than face the brunt of the direct man on the streets. So just like Bola has said, it can be both ways. It can just be something to keep us having conversations. Can also be to say, what a perfect time to get this done. But the truth is, every decision we want to make going forward will have to make us make adjustments. For you, for instance, have had to make adjustments as a person, okay, to deal with the current reality. So the truth is, we can't always live like we have always lived. Part of the excuses we made under the Jonathan era, which made us postpone this day, was what will people say? How will people live? How will people do? But here we are. How many years after doing the same thing? So sometimes I just say to people, we just have to do what we need to do now. If that will solve. But just like Bola has said, implementing that report, if you're not careful, you're going to have litigation issues because most of those agencies actually have employment letters. They have, so there's going to be a lot of litigation issues. A lot of those agencies were they made up of based on the Act of Parliament. Do you have to pass a bill to devolve the, so all those intricacies. It's not really just a straight line, okay? So, but it's really going to be tough. But I think that whatever we'll need to do now, we'll have to make you and I make adjustments, and which is why I feel that this is a period for people to be having town hall meetings. Maybe because of the pressure of the environment, that won't be a very good time to interface with people. But people really need to understand why these things are happening. The state government, the councillors, the chairman, need to start talking to people, engaging people. Apart from giving handouts, talking to people, making lifestyle adjustments. For instance, today, I think it's today or tomorrow, the House of Assembly, the House of Rep, is going to start a process, for certain adjustments in the bill. How are people, so these things, we need to become more information driven and share more information across board, which is why I have a problem that people are only focused at the top and nobody's looking at the engagements that happen at the bottom end of the economy.
All right. Before, of course, we wrap up this segment of the show, let's look at what the president said, during that particular meeting. And the president, in his words, said, let's look at what we are doing right and what we are doing wrong to bring back life to the economy. Like I said many times, the people of this country are only the people we have to please. And we are very much concerned, from students to mothers and fathers, farmers, traders, and it goes on. We are looking for additional efforts that might help the downtrodden Nigerians. We assure Nigerians that we will do our best to get our Marshall Plan in place and fashion out the best economic future for the country. End of quote. Really extensive words there. But my question to you, Bola, is this. Looking at all of the efforts the current administration is putting in place to stabilize the economy, how soon do you think this light that we are expecting at the end of this tunnel will shine?
Well, things will happen in time horizons. So you have something that will happen within a short term. So when we're talking about intervention, some of this intervention, palliatives and all of those are short-term measures. Some of these measures will not themselves solve sustainably the problem that we have. So solutions will be across time horizon, and the dividends will also come across those time horizons. So, for example, a sustainable solution to volatility of our currency is that we should produce more. So produce goods and services that you can offer to the world and earn foreign exchange, and cut down on your guzzling of imported products. So those are things that will not happen in a microwave manner. They will take their time. But there are some other things that can happen in a short time. Let me give you an example. In July, the president was talking about 500,000 hectares of land. Everywhere I've spoken, I'm always mentioning this. And some of the food items that we eat, they are maximum 3 months, 4 months cycle. If we put them in the ground since last year, we will have been harvesting by now.
All right, Bola, thank you so much for, of course, your contribution on this half of the program. Bola Olojede, economist, and also Oludare Akinlaja, management consultant and international development advisor. Gentlemen, once again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
having us.